The Exorcist 3. Steve Newton of the Georgia Straits says, a good chunk of The Exorcist 3 is taken up by a series of sit-down chats. Close-up of Scott's ugly mug are the only half-frightening thing on screen. Rob Gonslave, that's how we're going to go with it, of efilmcritic.com, I'll call it a noble failure. And then lastly, Steve Crum, which is about his last name describes his taste and his reviews perfectly, might I add, says an unnecessary sequel to sequel with top cast. He has the top cast right.
He does.
But unnecessary?
Wrong,
because we gotta dig deep. So
these critics must have been possessed by the spirit of stupidity.
So with all those reviews that we're reading that are rotten, this week we review The Exorcist 3. We're really fucking enjoying this. How low can we go? We're at because the whole point is how low can we go and still find these really enjoyable movies that are that don't deserve to be rotten.
Well, to catch you up, if you haven't been part of this yet, so what we decided was because horror movies are perpetually underrated by critics, we were going to start with Rotten Tomatoes not fresh rating, which is 59%, and watch one movie for each percentage point all the way down to 0, and try to find something good or watchable all the way down.
And call out the shit critics.
Exactly.
Because we're
Steve Crum.
fucking tired of this shit.
Exactly.
They just shit on horror.
Right.
It's like they woke up on fucking Wednesday and they're like, oh shit, I need the boss needs my review in by 9.
Yeah.
Let me just say how bad it was.
And it's so lazy because they're just picking out the most obvious points. I didn't like the scene, but I'm not going to argue that George C. Scott is a great actor. So bad movie, great cast, blah. Review done.
Or that the guy who wrote the original fucking books directed this one, and the dialogue is fucking Tarantino level between the cast.
Totally amazing.
So
with a couple of exceptions, but yeah, that's the thing is, so we started at 59%. Our feeling was the further down towards 0 we got, the harder it would be to find good things. And what we're finding is that I'm actually enjoying the movies more.
This batch was the best batch
right.
I think we've watched.
So Exorcist 3 is 55% on Rotten Tomatoes, right?
Yep.
And yeah, so we
55%
yes
critics, and it's actually 54% audience. So it's even the audience thought it was a little bit worse. So we're gonna throw you motherfuckers in.
That's a mess.
We need to have a talk.
Right. And then the next movie we're reviewing is The Faculty, which is 54%. And I'm bringing that up now because I'm really enjoying the accidental connections when we pair movies, because we're doing them 2 per episode. And there's some things that are happening where there's really interesting random connections that happen between the movies that we choose. And in this case, there's a couple things that happened that I thought were really interesting. One is The Exorcist 3 is I think, so this is going to be a weird statistic, right? I'm making this statistic up because it's only important to me. I feel like The Exorcist 3 holds the record for the highest average age of a cast member in a horror movie I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Right? There's no young people in this movie. No major young people at all. The first shot is a bunch of rowing team people, and I don't think you see anyone who doesn't have gray hair after that. And then you think George C. Scott and his friend are old until you start realizing who the Gemini is possessing, because the people he's possessing are making George C. Scott look like he's a teenager. This movie is just cluttered with really, really adult, themes and older people. So record number 1, highest age cast of any horror movie I think I've ever enjoyed I can think of, right? And record number 2, and this blows my mind because I didn't expect this, is I think this is the best horror movie ever directed by a horror novelist.
Yep. Right? We talked a little bit about that, because the other ones would be Clive Barker.
Hellraiser would be the only competition,
and,
right?
and then Stephen King's
Maximum Overdrive. Right. And there's a few others, but this, it can't be easy to go from being a novelist and in the verbal space and doing those visuals. And he directed the hell out of this movie.
It is fucking beautiful. Like,
So you haven't seen this before, right?
No. I'd seen pretty much all the Exorcists, like all the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I had seen clips of Exorcist 2, The Heretic,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it was fucking goofy. And the only scene I had seen from Exorcist 3 is when George C. Scott is with all the patients and you see the woman crawling on the ceiling.
Yep.
I'd only seen that. I think I saw on TV once, but that was it. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And then I switched it because I didn't know what the fuck was going on because I came in way too late.
Yep.
Never seen it before. And as soon as I started, dude, I got fucking hooked, right? Like, as soon as it started, like, it felt like, I don't know. It's definitely like a supernatural crime drama.
Yes.
And it's fucking great. Everything about it's great. the rating it has right now is a crime.
Yes. Yeah. The rating right now is it had to have crossed some malevolent force somewhere who's causing bad reviews to happen.
And I wonder if the time it came out, because there is a really good video essay. I forget who it's from, but we'll put in the show notes who talked about the movie in really good detail. It also came out the same year as Silence of the Lambs. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that somehow, which is actually kind of crazy timing because Homeboy just died.
Yeah.
I wonder if that had something to do with it.
Well, okay, so let's talk about like the obvious thing here is it's being compared to the original, even by the critics, right?
Which is that I think is the biggest fuck
And the
up.
studio brought that on themselves because they renamed it Exorcist 3 from Legion, which is what William
Legion would be a
Blatty
good
wanted to
title.
call
I
it.
got really confused because I saw Legion and I thought about the new FX show. And I was like,
Right.
I know George C. Scott's not starring in anything in 2016. He's long gone.
Unfortunately, exactly. So they're comparing it to the original, I think, and two is, believe it or not, George C. Scott won like a Razzie or something for his performance, which is ridiculous, right?
No,
Not that
so
it's
dumb.
perfect, but he is so far ahead of what most actors do in horror movies. Like, it's not even it's like comparing a star to an asteroid. Like, he's just amazing. Even when he's going overboard or like whatever, he's got like these nuances and this power and this charisma that just makes it interesting no matter what's happening, right?
There's something like really charming about him no matter what the fuck he's doing.
Totally.
And it keeps you hooked. And I think that's like he is like the main flavor of that film.
Totally. But you were talking about, I like what you said about the Tarantino style banter. You love the relationship between him and his friend.
Oh my God, in the beginning, like, and that's what I think hooked me because it was like, I did think about like the first Exorcist film, and then cut to, I'm just gonna call it Legion. That way we can do it some fucking justice.
Sure.
That the studio, that Warner Brothers at the time couldn't, or whoever whoever it was, whatever that logo is. Their banter between each other, I was like, this shit's like. One, it was interesting conversation. It was just like something in Pulp Fiction. And two, it was fucking hilarious,
yes.
Which is what I think all horror needs. It needs something to like break up the tension so you can laugh along with it,
yep.
Have a good time, and it really makes you like trust the characters, and their conversation between each other actually made me care for them. I'm like, oh, they're best friends.
Yep.
They know each other. They have relationships, and I loved in the beginning how they had the father. He was like, oh, it's the anniversary of a friend's death. I have to go see George C. Scott's character. He takes it hard this time of year. And then it cuts to George C. Scott in his house. And he goes, oh, I know, I got to go see Father. It's the anniversary of a friend's death. He takes it really hard this time of year. And they're just like flipping it.
Totally.
And where do you see it?
Because they can't admit it to themselves. Right?
Oh, and I love that. And I love how all the, like, their lives are kind of shit. And then I love how they go see It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, totally.
The best.
And the thing is, first of all, it is horrendous when Father Dyer gets killed. Horrendous. Like that, because you've really got attached to their friendship.
Yeah.
So when he loses his friend, and we got to cover this because he knows that he loses his friend almost in advance because of this creepy dream sequence.
With Fabio.
With Fabio.
And I think there was some other...
Yeah, there's all kinds of shit hidden in there.
There was like NBA stars.
Yeah,
Am I wrong? I
was weird when you were watching. Like, you're like, is that what's that? And the strange thing is, this is such a down to earth movie. It's gritty. It's like you said, crime drama, right? But then all of a sudden you're in a David Lynch film, and then all of a sudden you're not again, and it's so weird. Like, it's settling how it's bouncing back and forth. But he has a dream where his friend has been decapitated and his head sewn back on, and he's waiting in heaven, the lobby of heaven, to get into heaven, I think. And he looks at his friend and goes, I wonder if we're both dreaming this. And Father Dyer's like, I'm not dreaming, Bill. With his like sewn on head. I'm like, oh, that's so creepy. But the point is, because you're so invested in their friendship, and their friendship is so unique, I've never seen anything quite like it in a horror movie. And they're so like close without admitting it to each other, that it's so bad when he's gone.
Yeah, I was a little sad too.
Like a gut punch.
I thought he was gonna be, because I had seen someone reviewed it. I think Cinemassacre might have did it, or Good Bad Flicks. One of those guys. They did they talked about the who we're gonna get to, the guy in the isolation, and I thought that was the father. It was gonna be that guy, so I was a little sad. But like their friendship, like it played so fucking well.
Totally.
Like it didn't seem fake. Like it just seemed like two guys who've been through a bunch of shit, and they're just like whatever. Like the scene where they're in the hospital, he talks about how nice and quiet it is. And then the nurse starts going, who put that patient over there? And then they start screaming. She goes, do we need anything? He goes, we're fine.
Well, that's another thing is I did think that they were a little goofy in parts.
Oh, but I loved it.
When I first watched it as probably early 20s, I thought they were kind of goofy. One is because I think you have to be a little bit older to kind of get some of what's happening in this movie, because it really stands out in the horror field as something that's tackling very, very adult, big issues rather than what
it does well.
Yeah, it does it well. But the important thing is, like with those two, I thought they were a little bit goofy, but then rewatching it this time, I realized there are so many horrendous things they've been through and are currently going through in their lives that it's like the forced humor knob is dialed up on them, and it makes sense.
Yeah, because
for them as people,
they're just trying to like
joke past the darkness.
Yeah, that's how they're dealing with like the fucked up shit.
Right, like a surgeon or people who have to deal with extreme accidents and kind of like the black humor they have.
Yeah.
You know, like it's totally that, right? And that's why I didn't get it at first, but when I got it now, it was like it's not that it's written weird, it's the fact that they're wound really tight, even in the humor realm.
And the way they acted too is like they both know like what they're like when they're saying that shit, they both know like, hey, like we're together to wind down for a little bit, and then he just leaves them in the
which is exactly what's happening in that amazing scene you loved with the carp. Tell them about the carp.
Oh, they start talking about like, I think he asked like what's for dinner or something like that. Like they ask him like what he's gonna eat, and he stinks. He stinks. He goes, you're really close to me.
Before it's the stink part, what happens is they leave the movie, so they've seen It's a Wonderful Life, and they don't want to separate, but they run out of excuses to be together because they saw the movie they were going to see, right? So he goes, so are you going home to have dinner? To George C. Scott, and George C. Scott's like, I can't go home. and Father Dyer's like, why can't you go home? He's like,
and that's what he says. You're standing close to me.
You're standing close to me. You probably noticed that I smell like I haven't showered in 3 days. And the guy goes, so George C. Scott goes into this amazing slow burn, like storytelling around a campfire tale of the fact that he's got a visitor who's like a mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law's there, yeah.
She's going to cook a carp for dinner, but she wants it to be fresh, so it's being kept in the bathtub and it's swimming around. And it's creeping George C. Scott out, and he's
swimming up at the top, down the top, up the top.
And he's like, if I go home and I see that thing move one more time, I'm going to kill it. And the great thing about that scene is not his storytelling, which is amazing. It's his friend's reaction. Because his friend, when you watch it, his friend is slowly cracking up every step of the story as we get closer and closer to the creepy carp explanation. And then they both look at each other and they realize they've made an excuse to go have dinner. So they get more time with each other, which is what they wanted in the first place. But none of that is said out loud.
You can tell there's that like dependence.
Totally.
With him, which is what makes him dying like... It cracks like the tough guy like in him, because he's like a tough motherfucker.
Yes,
he even looks like he's like a tough motherfucker that you could hug.
Yep.
And like even in that essay, they say he's like wise, but also like philosophical. Like he's just like a perfect fucking like hero. For the film. There was one thing I noticed, and I loved how they did the Gemini killer. thing.
Yeah,
in
it's
this film.
amazing.
The way they do like the murderers.
Well, before
solving.
before you just keep that thought for a second, because I actually had wanted to just mention anyone who rewatches this film. There are Blatty's a writer.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things, horrible things that happen that are either there are shown later, like Father Dyer being emptied of blood next to his bed, but you don't see it happen, or it happens and then someone has to go to George C. Scott and report what happened step by step. And just so that we're all clear about what's happening here, there's a killer who's injecting people with a paralyzing drug that they can't move or speak, but they're alive, and then he's killing them slowly and painfully and gruesomely. And to think about someone who's just laying there knowing it's happening, but not horrible. I mean, absolutely
being drained
horrible.
of all of his blood.
But when you rewatch the movie, watch George C. Scott's reaction, because you can see that hearing all this ugly shit that happens in the world is taking a toll on him. But when people are telling it to him, he's not fazed at all.
Yeah.
He never reacts.
He's seen it. He's been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why it's so critical when he has that little reaction when he sees his friends, when he sees his actual dead
There's
friend.
the two times when he sees him in the room,
Yes.
and then the second time when he's trying to explain the Gemini killer to the guy.
Exactly.
When he loses it, oh my god, that scene.
But that's what I'm talking about. Is this movie made sure that the payoff moments were so powerful because it held back on all the other moments of people reacting. And when him and Father Dyer are in the restaurant, he tells him there's a killer who drove an ingot into the eyes of the victim, and his friend is like flipped out. Like you can see face crumbles, and he's like, now I can't eat. And like you can see how people react. And then George C. Scott has no reaction.
Yeah.
Never has a reaction because like you said, he's seen it all and done it all. You know what I mean? But it's amazing to watch him play that non-reaction up until the point where it snaps.
Oh,
because it's so good.
And he's the best actor to have that happen to him.
Totally.
He just looks the part. Like he's so fucking good.
Okay, speaking of good actors, Gemini Killer.
So, but before Gemini Killer, so leading into Gemini Killer, the way, and this is where you can tell Homeboy is a good fucking writer, because this is where the crime drama kicks in. Throughout the film, they keep saying like the Gemini Killer, he was executed. He's long gone. There's no way it's him. And then I love how George C. Scott, the father from the first Exorcist, they meet him,
Father Karras, right?
And he starts talking about all the shit he does. And then it goes to the scene where they're like, the Gemini Killer, he was executed. And he goes, he told me things that the Gemini Killer did. They're like, yeah, so what? He goes, we didn't release that to the press.
Right.
Oh, I love that shit. That writing, I was like, fuck me. Like that is, like the way they were setting up the Gemini Killer and how he's still like possessing and like killing all this shit. So fucking
good.
And
how bad is it to be one of the only people in the world who knows something that means the world is even worse than you think it is? It's bad enough that the world has Gemini killers in it, or Zodiacs, or Jack the Rippers, right? But the fact they can come back from the dead and keep going, and George C. Scott knows something that can't be explained is happening, but almost no one else knows because everyone else thinks the Gemini Killer kills in a certain way.
And since he's been in that realm, he knows he can't just tell everyone that because no one will fucking believe him.
Totally. Well, and he has to be careful who he releases the information to. That's the point, is you can't tell everybody how the Gemini Killer really operates, right? So you got to be careful about who you tell, which is why that scene when he snaps and tells them all, I think that was actually against procedure, but he just can't.
He's like, he's
do
loaded
it
up. He's loaded up. So the film really kicks off when he meets, they call him in the film Patient X.
Yes.
But it's Father, what's his name?
It's Father Karras from
Father Karras. Yeah. And the editing between Father Karras and then the actual Gemini Killer, and I can't say his last name, Brad Dourif.
Yep.
Dourif, voice of Chucky.
Yep.
The way,
amazing acting.
Fucking Christ, dude. Like The Exorcist, I was thinking about films where like people's voice gets real demonic, and some films do it really cheesy, but in this film, and even with the other Exorcist, but I think they did it better in this one for maybe tech reasons, I don't know. They slowly dial in the bassy demon voice, and his voice, the Gemini Killer's voice, gets more and more demonic as it goes on, and his fucking dialogue.
And there's like a growling mixed in behind it, right? Like,
dude, so like the other thing that's great about this scene is that Father Karras and the Gemini Killer, they had to like both do like that scene, because it cuts. The camera roll keeps cutting back and forth, and it's Father Karras cuts back. It's a Gemini killer.
Yep.
And whenever the Gemini killer, he has like two big like monologues in the film, and fucking Christ, dude! Like, there's the scene where he's talking about how he actually did it when he's telling George C. Scott how he injects him, and I fucking like the one shitbag reviewer we had on here was like, it's just ugly close-ups, and the motherfucker, like in this film, they do close-ups good. Like, it's not just these weird.
No, the close-up's good, and the framing shots are good because they're sitting across from each other like chess pieces.
And the way it's lit.
And the way it's lit from the windows, both like a shaft of light on each. I mean, come on.
It's so fucking good. Which is weird because Silence of the Lambs did close-up shots, and people were like, he did close-ups really well.
Yep.
I think this fucker did it just as good.
Yeah.
Not to say one's better than the other. They're both great, which is we were talking about that. But he talks about the scene where he's like, his voice is so good. I can't do it justice, but he's like, he's like, the human head when decapitated can still see for up to it's the way he's saying it. Like, he says it like a fucking madman.
Well, let me tell you something that I feel like I caught in this watch.
Well, just real quick. But when he's talking about it, he mentions, when he says like the human head can see for 20 seconds, it's a close up of his like teeth and him saying it.
Yes.
And it just puts you right in front of this fucking killer's face as he's clearly telling you how to do it. And he fucking kills it, dude. Like, I think that performance is fucking hand in hand with Anthony Hopkins.
I agree. It's one of the most chilling performances I've ever seen for a short segment of time put in a film. And but see, here's the thing. And I think this is actually something that has in common with Hannibal, maybe even more Hannibal the TV show than the Hannibal in the movie.
I would say more TV show. Yeah.
And here's the reason. And this is the interesting part. The heroes, the good people in this movie, when I'm just gonna say it straight out. The good people in this movie are having zero fun. They're not having fun.
No,
they are miserable. And George C. Scott is miserable, and his friend is miserable. They have fun with each other, but their lives are not. They're not having fun. And you see all the bit characters who are the good people, the people who are in authority, like the guy running the medical thing who ends up committing suicide.
Scott Wilson from Walking Dead.
Yes. And the nurse that he keeps interviewing, who's in charge of everything, who talks like she's a mannequin robot for most of the time, right? And these are the good people. They're not having fun at all. You know who's having fun? The bad people are having fun.
Yeah.
And the demons are having fun. And Brad Dourif, when he's giving these monologues, he literally is like saying, I did this and I had showmanship and I made this happen just this way and I didn't spill a drop of blood. And he's like, this is and he goes, it's the smiles that get you through, don't you think? Like, this is
wonderful life.
It's a wonderful life. Right, exactly, which is amazing because he's the one who seems to be having the fun on the bad side, right? And I think it's kind of what you were saying before about how good Brad Dourif's performance is, because he's obviously suffering. I mean, you think about the process that the story has him going through, and he got fucked over by his master really bad.
Yeah.
Like, think about, because the guy could have put him in any body to go back to killing, but he put him in the body of a guy who fell down a flight of stairs, and then he's like, I had to regenerate the body over 15 years. That's what he's been doing in the cell for 15 years. He's trying to get this body to come back in workable condition so he could use it to kill again.
Yeah.
That's not a good time.
No, the master's like...
The master gave him a hard project.
Gave him a fixer-upper.
I was gonna have trouble recovering from that. Yes, totally give him a fixer-upper. So he shouldn't be having fun, but he keeps talking about his work and how much he enjoys his work and how
he's an artist,
right? So he is having fun. He's expressing himself, and the other people are living lives of cleaning up or controlling when other things get out of hand, which is necessarily the less fun task to do.
Yeah.
Right. So, but when he's acting, he's doing that cross between suffering and pissed off because of he just wants to get back to killing and like, he obviously has got a lot of issues, but he's also just having fun thinking about what he's going to do and then doing it.
He had fun explaining it. Like the last part of the monologue I liked was he was talking about the artery. You can do this one or this one. It's really just a preference. And he's like, you lift the legs up and you squeeze the blood out. But then he talks, the last part I loved, he goes, you get most of the blood, not all of it, but enough.
He's like, you get most of it, not all of it. It's not a perfect process.
That was it. It's not a perfect process. Right. Oh my God.
Right, exactly.
Fucking if you even if the movie doesn't interest you, watch it for just his scenes.
But that's not easy to pull off as an actor, where you're pulling off somebody who's unhappy and happy at the same time, and it's
I was thinking about that because most people would be like, oh, people like because we're in LA, people talk about acting as if they're fucking
right
schooled. He does crazy really fucking good. He doesn't do crazy like Jack Nicholson in Little Shop of Horrors crazy.
No.
Like he does crazy where like it's believable. It's not over the top.
No, it's really nuanced. And that's why that big scene where he goes totally out of control and he starts ranting and he's like the father's in here with me. He has to watch me do all these things. He's going to suffer forever. He's going to be in pain until the end of time. Mm-hmm. And then he stops and he's like, oh, gracious, was I ranting? And he sits back down in his chair like whatever. And it's just like this perfect transition from...
It's so... And the way they cut it between the two actors is just fantastic. So
the ending?
The ending. This is what I loved about Exorcist 3 that I like over movies like that have like demonic things in it, like Paranormal Activity. I don't like it when the people we're invested in are helpless.
Yes.
Because I always watch these films and like... Even after watching Paranormal Activity, I'm like, there's got to be like the guy from The Exorcist could just walk in and like curse the demon out. Like, I don't like the fact that you're completely
That's a good
helpless.
point.
I fucking hate that. Like, I always think
it's all stacked against him so bad.
Yeah, there's got to be an equal or opposite reaction to the demon. Like, I feel like there's got to be like some sort of combatant, and that's what I like about Exorcist.
Yep.
So towards the end, when the father from earlier in the film fucking struts down the runway to the cell, I was like, yes, this is it. And he didn't die, right? Like, or did he die?
He died. I think
he bled out.
I think
that was gross.
I mean, it's unclear. I don't know that they focused on that, but he was in bad shape when we last left him. Yeah.
His skin ripped off, but I loved
Well, to your point, and this is interesting because I think William Peter Blatty emphasized this for a reason. I'm not sure what it is, but I think it's exactly what you were saying. Brad Dourif gives this when he's talking about how he has to regenerate this body and regenerate the brain cells, and he keeps going, it's not easy, right? Mm-hmm. Like he literally says this part where he goes, we have to work through bodies in this world. Like we don't want to, right? Yeah. We're demons. We want to float around, do whatever. But when we're in this shithole, we can only work through bodies. I think he actually says we work neurological systems. We got to, it's a little bit like Mr. Smith Matrix style. Like this is disgusting that I have to be in this crap to get things done. You know what I mean? And when that showdown scene at the end comes, that's an important thing to know because it's not stacked. The demon's got all kinds of powers, but he's still in a killable body. Yeah. Which is the point of the ending, right?
Which is why I love The Exorcist 2 and 3. What? 1 and 3.
Oh, it's 2. Get out of here, 2.
But the people hyped up the exorcism at the end. I didn't think it was as great as people said. That's probably if I had to give it one weak thing, I didn't think it was.
No, that was tacked on. The studio made that be there. So
that's true. That's what the guy said. They threw it on at the end because they needed it because it's The Exorcist.
Yep.
And it showed. It's one of those cases of studio stepped in.
Well, there's no character development behind that priest that strolls in there. Like you have no stakes. You don't care who he is. You want him to win because you feel bad for the priest who's stuck with the demon.
Yeah.
But you don't give a rat's ass about
No, you care about George C. Scott.
Exactly.
Over him. And that ending scene, too, like, people said it was, like, kind of cheesy because he's like, I have no pain, I have no suffering. But given the fucking character, he's been through a lot of fucked up shit.
Yeah, I thought that was great, and I don't think it was overacted. And I think that, the litany of things that he believes in, sure, that's like, kind of like chewing the scenery, but, like, you got to understand the cap line to that is I believe in you. And he's talking to the devil.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that is not a position that someone who's a good person, which he is, wants to find themselves in, that they don't believe in God, but they believe in the devil. And he's miserable because of that fact. And it shows. And the speech, is it lays that out, and that's how it should be. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I love you and I talked about the very ending because the cop training kicks in. So this is never not a crime drama, even when it gets supernatural.
Yeah.
It's still a crime drama because you see they get the cops' instant reflexes in at the end. Like when Damien, Father Karras, gets control of his body for 1 second, he shouts to his friend George C. Scott. He goes, "Kill me, shoot me now!" And he can't even finish the sentence before George C. Scott puts like 5 bullets in him. He's still saying what to do when he's getting shot because it happens so fast, and that's because he's a cop and he knows you get one chance.
Yeah,
and you can't miss and you can't waste time.
There was one last thing before we move on that I wanted to point out that I loved because it was just genius fucking writing. Was I noticed whenever George C. Scott was at like a dead body, I noticed he would touch the hands on both sides, and I caught that, and I was like, I wonder, he's doing that for a reason. Like he's fucking with them and like checking the palms.
Yep.
And then later on down the film, like the Gemini killer would cut off, I forget, it was like left or right. They'd be like, he cuts off the right index finger, and he goes, no, he cuts off the left index finger, and then it's like, oh, that's why he was checking.
And
both.
he carves in this palm,
and he calls that, yeah. And that's just genius writing because other films, and they say it in that essay, like they would really point out to it, but the camera was just like, we're gonna let you figure it out.
Yes.
It's a smart fucking movie.
Yeah, totally.
And it doesn't hold your hand.
Totally. The flaws in it, I don't like the opening scene with George C. Scott with his cop friends. William Peter Blatty, being a writer, wedges in a bunch of Shakespeare, which I'm not against. But they had no place there. His cop friends were like, they had no idea what the hell he was talking about or what was happening. And I did not like the whole lightning effect carving out the floor at the end.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty ridiculous, right? But overall, I mean, it's like whatever. And now let's deal with the elephant or exorcist in the room. Exorcist 3, as scary as The Exorcist?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing is, we talked about this. So the way I thought about it was, I think The Exorcist, the original, scared me more than Exorcist 3 in totality as an effect. But like, Exorcist 3 has more scary scenes than Exorcist, and it's genuinely creepy in its own right. So there's no way it's less scary. It's equal.
It's equal, but it gives you more humor. So I think that makes it a lot more palatable, which might actually be the reason why some people may or may not have liked it.
Well, like you and I talked, the target of the first one is a little girl, so that's just like the stakes are higher, and it's just like and there's something. There's more than the sum of the parts thing going on with the original Exorcist. There's an effect it has on you where you feel like it took something out of you.
Yeah.
Exorcist 3 is similar, but it's more, I think it's just more intellectual.
Yeah.
So it's a little more distant than the immediacy of the first one. But, but the scenes that are scary are some of the best that have ever been done. So it's,
and the dialogue's great.
Yeah.
So Exorcist 3. Or Legion.
Right?
Legion.
Exactly. All right, so Exorcist 3 is 55% on Rotten Tomatoes. Legion is 97%. We declare it right now.
We declare it 97. I would, if I had to give it a real honest rating,
92.
I think between 88 and 90. Yeah, I would say. I'd say that's fair.
I'd go like 92.
There's a few dated things that I think there's a few things, but that's where I would line up.
I'd go 92, maybe even 94, just from the fact that even though there are more flaws in it than like a perfectly put together movie, I think that it did things that we've never seen before and may never see again in a horror film.
Yeah, true. So there we go, Legion.
All right.
Moving on. So now we're going to go down the totem pole to 55%. 54%. Robert Rodriguez's The Faculty. But real quick, because we wanted to take on some of the critics.
Yes.
But I don't want to take them on, so I need to be fair. For Legion, I read a review from Steve Newton from Georgia Strait, who hated it. To be fair, he gave The Faculty a positive review.
What?
So I just want to start with the positive. For The Faculty, because I want to give this guy a fair shot. I don't want to just shit on him. He's got a heart. Yep. The Faculty succeeds as a youth-oriented shocker due to the director, editor, and frequent camera operator Robert Rodriguez's provocative eye and fanatic pacing. So thank you, Steve Newton.
Interesting.
Of Georgia Strait.
He kept both eyes open for that review.
Kept both eyes open. Okay, so for the rotten reviews, The Faculty. Let's see here. We have The Faculty consistently draws attention to its own ill-joined cracks and seams. That is Peter Matthews of Sight and Sound, Andrew Howell, Film and Written Magazine. Decidedly average film with flashes of inspiration. That's not a scathing review. Here we go. John L. I can't say his last name. From Movie Metropolis. If you have the feeling you've been here before, you have.
Yeah, because that never happens in horror.
Oh, and then here's the last one from Jeff Weiss, Salt Lake City, Discreet News. Be ashamed, Kevin Williamson. Be very ashamed.
Wow.
Of fucking what? So we reviewed.
Wait, this movie's got cracks and seams? It's leaking water? What's happening in this movie?
It shouldn't be leaking water.
No, you're right. Because of the plot, right?
And there was one more guy who had a goofy last name that sounded like the alien. Ulrich? That's not him.
Oh, screw these people. They've had enough time.
Yeah, fuck them.
Well,
we just want to let you know that people are shitting on this film for no fucking reason at all.
Well, no, I mean, everyone's allowed to have an opinion or whatever. I just think,
that's true,
I think
but
these reviews
wrong.
are lazy, and I think they add up to a lazy average for things that you put together 20 lazy reviews and you get a poor rating average for a movie, and it's not fair to the movie because the movie worked really hard and you probably didn't for the most part.
True.
Right. So you're allowed to have the thing, but it aggregates into this rating that we don't like when there are things in the movie that have merits beyond what these little one-liners or two-liners are saying. Right. So I had never seen this movie and I had a blast.
Same here. And
you hadn't seen it?
I had not seen it, which is funny because I like El Rey on Facebook, and they were just showing this film. So I saw like a few scenes from the film.
Sure.
But I remember my friends liking it back in the day when it came out, but I never saw it.
So to set us up here, this is we had just covered Exorcist 3, which is the oldest cast in a horror movie that we've ever enjoyed. This is a super young cast, or at least they appear to be. They might be that thing where they're 8 years older than they're playing.
Yeah, they're more than likely, yeah.
More than likely. But this is set in a whole, the environment here is all about peer groups and peer pressure and, cliques. And,
in Ohio, where we're both
right.
So
Totally.
anytime a movie's set in Ohio, I'm like, wow, I really feel a connection to this, to this motion picture.
But this was so much fun. So go ahead, your opinions on The Faculty.
Right off the rip, I got this vibe. I was like, this feels a lot like Scream because they're referencing a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Written by the same guy.
And you didn't know that watching it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Written, produced, scored, Marco Beltrami, who Alex raved about.
Yep.
Same cast, just or same team, just with with Robert Rodriguez.
Yep.
Which is always a plus in my book because
Totally.
if I had a fanboy out, it'd be over him.
Yep.
Which I have to add. I'm a huge Robert Rodriguez fanboy, so I'm not just saying like, oh, The Faculty is great.
Right.
It's so great just because I like him.
No, I remember we came across a celebrity, someone we liked. I don't remember what it was, Stephen Fry, maybe.
Yeah.
And we were like, I was like, you're going to walk up to him. And you're like, no, I'm not going to walk up to him. I'm not that kind of person. I'm like, is there any celebrity that if you passed him on the street, you would just walk up to him? And you were like, Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah.
That was your answer.
That was him.
Right, exactly.
It still was cool to see Stephen Fry in
Yeah,
person.
no, totally.
Though. We made eye contact. He gave me knowledge.
Okay.
So this review is not coming from like a biased fanboy thing.
Yes.
The movie is a lot of fucking fun. It's not like it's not as scary as Scream. So people compared it. All the reviews are comparing it to Scream, saying it's lazy. It is comparable to Scream, but it's not as scary.
Well,
it's
back
fun.
up a second. All right. So it's a monster movie.
It is.
Monster movies aren't generally as scary as
it's
straight up horror movies.
True.
Right? Like The Blob or King Kong or Godzilla are not as scary as a scary movie usually.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just straight up a monster movie.
It's more suspense. You want that crew to survive whatever's taking over.
Now, the thing is that there are a couple excellent ones that screwed everything for everybody else because they were just so good. So like Alien was like, I'll be a monster movie and a horror movie and scare shit out of you and have a monster.
Yeah.
And then everyone was like, well, that's the standard.
Yeah.
Right?
If you have a monster, you have to be scared.
But most of them don't pull that off, right?
No.
So right off the jump, I didn't expect to be that scared by this, especially since the tone was sort of comedic, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of silliness into it and a lot of like self-referencing.
Yeah, totally.
in the film, which is I really love. Like, first of all, the people who said like, oh, it's a lot like Scream. Well, I liked Scream.
Right.
So I'm gonna
there
like
could be
this.
Worse comparisons.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not comparing it to a bad film. You're comparing it to a great film.
But you and I talked about how there were some specific purposeful call outs to things. And it was like so Kevin Williamson is playing three-dimensional chess with you.
Yeah.
Right? So he's calling out Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yep.
Which is what most of the critics would be like, this is a ripoff of the Invasion
That's what
of the
they
Body
said.
Snatchers. Right.
Some of them said, yeah.
But he literally called out in the movie
this
saying,
is the best part.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which was a ripoff of a book by Robert Heinlein. So Jack Finney wrote a book that ripped off that book, and then it became a movie, which became a remake. So, I mean, he's telling you that this is all part of a process where everyone's jacking the other thing from the other person and turning it, which is hilarious since the whole plot of Invasion of the Body Snatchers is duplication, right? I mean, he's just fucking with you there.
And the fuckery continued.
Yeah.
Right under...
That should have been the poster line.
The fuckery continues right under the critics' feet. They have no clue.
And they're not paying attention because that was so on purpose. And then... Oh my God. So one of our favorite scenes in any horror movie ever is the Thing blood test scene.
Yep.
Right. So.
Oh my God. They set up and I think I yelled it when it was happening.
You did?
Because they don't know there's the core like 5 or 6 students and they're like, how do we know you're not infected? And as soon as they said that and they're all in this room with the drug to test it, I was like, oh.
And with the lab setting.
Setting, I was like, oh, they're doing the thing. They're doing the blood test scene.
Right.
Like, this is fucking great.
Right.
And they still did it like, the thing,
well, we should say that the monster in the faculty can be killed by drugs.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious in a movie set in high school, that drugs are the one thing that can save all the teenagers.
Exactly. And it was like, I think it was like some sort of like caffeine pill mixture or something like that.
Yeah.
It's something to like just give the kids like a high and like, be high alert.
It actually seemed to fuck them up though when they took it.
It did. Because the alien was water based and the drug they were taking like dried up everything. So that's how it would kill them.
Which we discovered when they killed Jon Stewart, who was attempting to act while they killed him. And John, I love you, but there is no correlation between high IQ and acting ability.
No.
Like, sorry, dude.
He might as well have walked away. Hi, I'm Jon Stewart. I'm playing a science teacher for the next 30 minutes. But that's the thing. He's the only guy in the world who would do that. And I'd be like, oh, okay. Hi, Jon Stewart.
How do I die? You get stabbed in the eye with some drugs and then you dehydrate.
And yeah, that's fine. No, but like that scene in itself is they do a double fake out in the film.
They do.
So they
But that's the thing is they're using your expectation of what happened in the Thing blood test scene to fake you out of what's going to happen in this scene. On purpose. This is on purpose, critics.
Yeah, I don't know like what the critics were smoking. Like half of this shit, like they told you. They're like, hey, the thing we're basing this off was a ripoff, and then someone else ripped it off. So we're ripping this off because that's what other people did, and so we're gonna rip off this scene. But it's gonna go way over your heads because you guys are full of shit. But enjoy.
And we're gonna change it.
So and then they changed it, and then they added an extra step.
Yeah, for sure. And it's the same thing as Scream, where you're using the rules. And sure, that can get a little tiresome. Like Meta can get a little, headache-inducing, like whatever. But
sure.
But when you combine it with the manic pace of this movie and the fun they were obviously having making it and perpetrating it on the audience, you just got to be a hater at that point.
What were they expecting? Like, were they like Robert Rodriguez? He did Citizen Kane, right? Like, is that? That's what I'm expecting coming to this film. It's an enjoyable fucking movie that just went over, I think, too many people's heads.
Right. Now that's the thing. It's not perfect. But first of all, amazing cast. I was taken by surprise by how good even like the bit player.
The Terminator 2 guy.
Yeah, he was awesome. The coach
we got
awesome.
bamboozled because we didn't know that who Carrie Fisher's mom?
Debbie Reynolds.
Debbie Reynolds. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that was her because she had the big glasses on.
And then they had, I don't know how to say her name, Bebe Newirth, or the girl who played Lilith on
Frasier's wife.
Exactly.
How I know
who was amazing. But the whole thing is there's the fake out of the premise is basically just like with a tribe of vampires. You kill the master vampire, all the other people will turn back to life or die, whatever. Mm. And they're trying to save all their friends who have been turned at this point by identifying the queen alien and killing her or getting her high. Whatever you drying her out. So
which they reference Alien in the film.
But there's the fake out of who the queen's going to be, which is I think that is a triple fake out basically at the end of that one. And then it's the person you most would have suspected if you had thought about it the whole time, who actually is the queen. And that's like the fact that you can pull a triple fake out in front of everybody, in front of their eyes, and have it be like
it's like a double agent.
Exactly. But that's the whole point of a movie where things can duplicate each other.
It's supposed to fake you too many times over to where you're just like, fuck it. At this point, I have just no idea.
And it's almost creepy that Robert Patrick, I think his name is, the guy who plays the coach, who ends up in T2, plays the Terminator who can assimilate into other things and become it's like this is his whole career, right? Like, yeah. So, but I mean, when you have a movie where the premises are who's in, who's out, who's cool, who's not, who actually is what they say they are, who's not who they say they are. I mean, think about the people that you went to high school with. None of them turned out the way you thought they would.
No, all the cool kids have six children.
None of them were what they said they were, or how they were presenting themselves to the world.
Yeah,
which is how this movie on a big scale goes. If you can't figure out who's who, then you're all fucked because the aliens are going to take over everything. Yeah. Like it takes the thing that you're most puzzled about when you're an adolescent and perpetrates it on the globe. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah. No, the whole film was just, I mean, it was just enjoyable. Like, are you going to be like, oh, is it one of the greatest films of all time? Probably not. Right. I mean, unless you are like an actual fanboy who will like jerk robbery.
right. Exactly.
But it was like there was nothing. I don't think it deserved all the hate it got by a long shot. No. If you go into it knowing like, hey, this is gonna be a fun monster movie, high schoolers. Yep. Oh, and I wanted to bring this up. High schoolers versus your teachers, which is always the coolest fucking thing in the world. Like when you're, because you can always think back to high school and being like, the teachers never trust you. The teacher's always like, oh, those kids, they don't know what they're talking about. And then like but they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, totally.
I love when they do that.
Yep. And by the way, no offense, teachers, there really is something inherently creepy about places where teachers congregate. Like you walk by those little faculty lounges and like shit,
and they're dumb vending machines.
Yeah, like whatever, and you're like, whatever's happening there is weird.
I remember thinking that in elementary school.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, because they even mention it because like they had like the teachers' lounge, and it was always like, don't go in the teachers. Like, you're not allowed in the teachers' lounge. That's where the teachers go and talk shit about students. And then Elijah Wood and the girl from Fast and Furious, I forget her name. They go in there and he's like, are we allowed in here? Like, and they make it like a big thing. I was like, yeah, I know that feeling. You're not supposed to be in there. Get out of there, boy.
Right, exactly.
But I loved Elijah Wood in this film. And I wanted to bring this up for the fans because I thought this was interesting. If you haven't seen the movie Cooties, do this as a double feature. See The Faculty and then watch The Cooties, both with Elijah Wood. But in Cooties, Elijah Wood is I think he's like an English teacher. So he plays a teacher now, and all the students get infected with a zombie virus, and he has to, and it's really great. They have like Rainn Wilson,
yeah.
and it's really fucking funny. So double feature that to see Elijah Wood stuck in a school, trying to find his way against the teachers, and then reversing it, and being a teacher find his way against the students. There you go. There's your Saturday night. But no, I loved everything about, like, even Jon Stewart's character explaining the alien, putting him in the water, all that stuff. Like, I thought everything was just really well done. The creature, some of the effects have dated, obviously, because it was, just it came at the time when they were still figuring shit out.
I don't know, man. You could tell some of it was, but there were some really beautiful shots.
Exactly. That's what I want to bring up.
Good.
Like the scene in the rain when like their faces going on all big. Mm-hmm. The actual creature design, because that's why I like it. I like creature features.
Yep.
The creature was like fucking like pretty scary, and like there was the scene where she goes into the pool because they need water, and so in the pool she had all the fucking water, and she grew really big, and it looked scary. It looked like
it looked a little like the creature from The Host to me when it got big.
Yeah. I would say, yeah. I would combine that if The Host like had like a baby with Queen Alien.
Yes,
it would almost sort of look like that.
But there was this really cool shot, and I like when directors have the put in the effort to do like a visual rhyme, because the creature had all these tentacles that fanned out, and when she was like half human, half creature, and she walked down the hall and she was stalking the students, you just saw the shadows of all the tentacles all around her in the air, and it looked really intimidating, right? Because she looked like a big walking like octopus times 20.
Yeah.
And then when you went to the scene of them huddled up in their safety zone, they were in the gym with all the streamers coming down from the ceiling. And the shadows to that looked exactly like the room she was in stalking the other. It was just a cool kind of visual combination of.
They did the high school thing pretty well too. Like it looked like a high school in Ohio.
Yes.
Where it's
no doubt.
The building, should probably be knocked down. Kind of like too old. Yes. The air conditioner never worked in the teacher's lounge. Like the setting of it, I thought was really good. And I even kind of liked the music. Like it gave it that like 90s charm, because they use music that obviously when you hear now, you're like, it dates the film perfectly for you. But it doesn't ruin it by any means, because like where it's set. I think if you go into it thinking like, oh, this is a knockoff of Scream, which I don't think it can be, because it's the same goddamn team behind it.
Right.
I don't know how you can knock off your own shit. You might not enjoy it. But if you go into it knowing like this is a fun creature feature that has a lot of really cool moments, great creature design, great cast, wonderful director who I'm a 10% fanboy. You're going to fucking enjoy it. And it's not 55%.
And it's got some interesting things to say, like a horror movie should, about like the kind of like that era of life, and also like the idea that there's I'm not going to spoil who the creature is for anyone who hasn't seen it, but like,
spoiler, I've already said it, but you have no idea. Easter egg in the episode.
Easter egg in the episode, but the idea that you have outsiders who get identified and then kept outside of blocks for no good reasons is a thing that we all do to each other. It sucks.
Yeah.
And the movie is kind of like plays on that, where it was like, this is, if aliens were going to invade and use your bad traits against you, this is one of the things we'd use. We'd use this one for sure.
And the movie also has a lot of like comedic stuff in it too.
Totally.
Like when in the beginning, when he stabs a pencil through the girl's hand, he goes, "I've always wanted to do that." And then she gets stabbed, and then the other teacher goes, "I've always wanted to do that."
That was great.
So I think, that's the theme I'm seeing, is if you do a horror film, put a little bit of comedy in there. Just a dash, just to liven it up.
So this movie definitely also does not deserve this rating. Don't think it was. I didn't enjoy it as much as Exorcist 3. I would put this one at probably 75.
I was gonna say, wow, 75%. I was debating between 72, 75. Land on 75. We both agree.
Yep.
I think it deserves a fresh rating. Just know where it's coming from.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Pretentious assholes ruining movies. God damn it. That's what we're
They
discovering.
didn't ruin shit. I had a great time.
They tried to, but I know there's had to been some people who were like The Faculty, and then they go to Rotten Tomatoes and they're like 55.
And we're going to be totally objective about our how low can we go process. So when we hit a movie with no redeemable qualities, and the critics are right, like that's
so like, okay, so just to be fair, so if I had to add some shit that I didn't like, there a little bit of dated effects, but the creature design and all that other stuff makes up for it.
Right.
It's a little bit.
The effects were good for the time it was made.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only real thing.
There were things made that year that were bad that year.
True. And I think some people might be turned off by like how cheeseball, a little bit of it might be like the intro where they're introducing everyone, just like the freeze frames. But I
think the main criticism that people say, I could see it. I can see
their main
feeling like
criticism was as a
I've
knockoff.
been here before.
Yeah.
Right. And to someone who, like, imagine a horror fan who watches nothing but horror movies, nothing out of the genre, which by the way isn't healthy, and they've seen all of the things that are referenced in this movie. They might be like, oh, God.
The excuse I've been here
50
before
times.
is not a valid one in my opinion.
I agree.
If I go to a restaurant that I really enjoy, I wouldn't go back and be like, oh, this place again. I've been here and I've enjoyed this. No, I'm going to fucking love it.
No, but see, that's the thing. There is such a clear difference between Halloween comes out and makes a shit ton of money, and then there are some slasher imitators and some really good ones, but then there were some who were like, this is a cash-in move.
Yeah.
And they're literally trying to rerun the same playbook with no other play, right? And that I can see getting pissed off at.
Yeah,
but any movie that tells you that the process behind our main inspiration for the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers, this is the process by which everyone took this Olympic torch and ran another leg with it, and now we're going to run another leg with it. And while we're running another leg with it, we want you to come up and shake our hands so we can burn you with the torch because you can't trust us. That's not the same thing. It's not a cash-in.
It's not a
move.
cash-in.
Right.
And you can, and I think if Wes Craven had redid it, I feel like they would have, if they had gotten the exact same fucking crew, maybe, like if it had been Scream 2 at the time. But I feel like they gave it the Robert Rodriguez gave it the Rodriguez treatment.
Yes.
And that's why I think it's different.
I agree. Totally.
You hear that, Al Ray?
Exactly right.
Okay, so we have a few films picked out for 50.
And by the way, we've gotten a lot of really good suggestions from you guys. Keep them coming. We love. You can message it to our Facebook page at Halloween Weekly. You can post it to the page.
We see it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we have a brand new website, so
up and running. Very cool. It looks really well designed by a genius I know. So you can contact us through there. There's email on it. So we would love suggestions because we still got to pick out like 50 movies. Yeah.
But we have picked our next two on the ladder rungs down from where we are, which are.
So we're thinking.
Oh, we haven't picked them out.
No, we have a few
options, right?
Yeah, but we'll let you know. We're thinking of Wolf Creek. It's for 52 and 51%.
Yes.
I forget what the percentages are, but the films were.
It must be 53, 52 now.
Yeah. So the films we're eyeballing is Wolf Creek.
Yep.
I think that's 53. I think that was the higher one.
I think so.
Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. I fucking love that title. That is such a bitchin' title. Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. And then Friday the 13th, part 6.
Definitely 6, yep.
It's part 6. Jaws 2 isn't there, but we don't want to watch Jaws 2.
I love Jaws 2, but I don't want to refight the Jaws 2 thing. I think Jaws 2 is in the same position that Halloween 3 is, where
people are like, it's so underrated. It's so underrated. People talk about how underrated it is. It's no longer underrated.
It's not an interesting conversation anymore.
So, but if there's anything in that percentage rating that you would want us to dive into, let us know.
Or in the further ones, honestly.
Yeah, go fucking deep, man.
We haven't looked.
Throw us a Hail Mary.
Yeah, we haven't looked any of the 40s or anything like that. So anything that you... And honestly, you don't have to look up the rating. You just got to think to yourself, is there a movie that most people hate, a horror movie that most people hate, where I was like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
The odds are as low rated. So
odds are it's, yeah.
Just shoot it to us.
We'll run by it at some point.
Exactly.
So until next time, stay scary and watch some good shit.
Bye, guys.
Bye.